Hi there. So you got yourself cards to go. Let me give you a quick walkthrough of what's in the box and how to use them just in case we haven't actually used these tools before. For the purpose of this box and all the stuff I'm going to show you, this is the card that I used as a sample. You had sent me a picture in this case. I've added a couple things because I never do anything the way I'm supposed to. This is not the exact paper that you showed me because I have a limited supply of it, so I left that for you to use if you wanted to. But this is another one from the package. But I've added a whole bunch of extra stuff in there too, so you can go to town and do what you want. But just so we're like figuring out what's in there, the intent was to do this. So if I bring out the sample card, that's why we're using that particular card. So one of the first things you have in there is just a placemat, just so you can stamp and go to town and glue on it and not have to worry about getting your nice furniture and stuff all dirty. You also have a silicone mat, which is exactly what it says, a mat made out of silicone. This is really, I use this underneath all my crafting for everything. But it's really good if you're doing anything with adhesives, because if you do get stuff sticky, you just wipe it off with like water and a piece, dry it off with a piece of paper towel. So it's just a nice thing to try to help protect your surfaces. So I'm going to go first, I'm going to do the tools that are included in your box. In no particular order, because hey, that's more fun. So this is the chamois for washing your stamps. Now, I splurged. I gave you a brand new one. This is what my chamois looks like. And believe it or not, it cleans perfectly well, and it does not transfer your fingers. That's one of the beauties of the Stampin' Chamois. So yours will look like that at first, so don't worry about it when you use it. It does that. So this thing right now, a little stiff. All you have to do is it dries out, which is what you want. All you have to do is get it wet with sort of some warm water, not too hot. I find that you could use cold water. I just find warm goes faster. So you'll get this till it's soft. Wring out the water, and then when you're done stamping, you just use this chamois, like it says, to wash it off. The ink stays in the chamois. I don't know, it's some magic technology. And it doesn't stick on your fingers, which is nice. And then if it starts to get really inky, like you feel like it's just getting really inky, it's not cleaning as quickly because there's too much ink in it, you can just give it a good rinse and squeeze it out again and then keep going. And then when you're done, just close it back in the case. These cases are not 100% airtight, which is good because you don't ever want to store it airtight because it will mold because it's wet. But this is just a good way to keep it clean. You can use a wet piece of paper towel. You can use an Enviro rag, whatever, but this helps. Ooh, that's very shiny. Okay, so chamois. Then we have a toolkit. So we have this nail adhesive. It's just got the little flap on there. The ridge side goes up, and this is basically just two-sided tape that you run on one layer, stick another layer on top. Some tweezers for the little bits, the paper piercer or pokey tool, like I like to call it, some scissors, nice little ruler, and a bone folder just for making creases. I've also added in, over here I've got a trimmer, which I'll show you in a second, but there is a spare trimmer blade that I've thrown in your toolbox, and that's just if you find that when you're cutting, if you're cutting paper on the trimmer, with the patterned paper is a little bit thinner, so it's unlikely to happen, but if you cut a lot of cardstock, sometimes it will wear down the blade on your trimmer, and you'll start to get like frayed edges. If that's the case, I'll show you in a minute how you do it, but you just want to pop the blade out and put in the new one, and it'll just make cleaner cuts. There's also this little pierce mat, this little foam mat. This is for using when you're using the clear stamps, the photopolymer stamps. If you just put this underneath whatever you're stamping on, like put the paper over top of this, it just gives it that extra little bit of padding. So that's what that's for. I added some blocks. In this case, there's 4. I put in one rather big one because one of the sets I gave you has a big stamp in it, and so it will fit on this one. Most of the other ones will fit quite well on these other ones. I like to have a few so that if you have a bunch of stuff going at once, you don't have to keep cleaning the stamp, taking it off the block, moving it around. It all just depends how you stamp. So we've got those. We have a green bin. As you can tell, it's for garbage. There's always something a little bit sticky stuck to the bottom of the green bin. So that's the case this time too. Okay, we have adhesives. Now adhesives are a personal choice type thing. In this case, we have the white glue, and it's just in this. This is actually the bottom half of a chocolate container, but it's in there just because it holds it upright. So this unscrews. This is like a glue stick end. I can honestly say I have never used this end of the glue, but you could. You can use this white glue to like glue your card layers together, to glue on little pieces. So I would imagine if you were gluing card layers together, this would be a good way to do it. Although if you are going to do that, because I stored them this way, turn it upside down a bit. Let gravity help you. So because I store it this way, the glue is like right at the end. And then if you're using it for a project, you can just throw it in like this. It's a little gluey on the bottom. But that way you don't have to keep taking the lid off, and you don't have to keep shaking it and squeezing it and trying to get it. It just makes it a little easier. So if your preference is white glue, I know lots of stampers who use almost exclusively white glue. That's fine too. This is a whole little box of tricks here. This is the tear and tape is what it's called. And if I find the edge, one of the beauties of it is you can just tear it with your fingers. So this is basically two-sided tape. And I'm going to take some scraps here. So basically you put one side down. You hope you have enough nails to do it. This is what the pokey tool is for, but I already moved it out of the way, so we're going to just see if I can do it with my nails. There we go. When you pick up so you put it down on one side, you pick up the top layer. When you put the next piece down over top, now you have very secure. This tape is used for if you have really heavy layers, or if you have big embellishments, or if you're doing 3D projects that you really want a good solid seam on, you want to use that. I also use it just to put card bases on sometimes because I like it. It's super handy, and you could just run it out, use your thumb to rip it, and away you go. Oops, stuff's going everywhere. Okay, we have some dimensionals. There's some small ones, which you can't really see because there's a full sheet. Oops. These are the tiny ones, the mini ones. And then there's a couple sheets of full ones. Same thing, they're both the same, they're just different sizes. So in between layers of cardstock, you stick it down, peel off the little bit, which will stick if it's not onto your hand, and it just gives you a little bit of dimension. So when I put this label on, I probably can't get quite the right angle, but there's 3 dimensionals. I put dimensionals like doop, doop, doop behind this, and it just raises it up, gives it the different layers on the card. Just give it a little more interest. Flat is fine as well. If you're mailing it, or if you're sticking like a big thick letter in here and you want to make sure it still clears the mailbox, then maybe you don't want to use dimensionals. Maybe you just want to glue it straight down, but I like dimension, so I put it in. These are some glue dots, and I'm realizing now there's a theme. They're also two-sided. So here, I'm at my desk. I have my own picky tool. So when you take your pokey tool, you can pick this up, just like go onto the edge of it. You'll get the glue dot, so it's sticking because there's a glue dot there. And then I'm gonna have to use piece of paper because it's never gonna stick to my hand. So then we're gonna put the glue dot down on wherever it is we want to stick something, or you can put it on the back of a piece of cardstock if that's what you were doing. Again, peel off the little piece, and now here we'll just stick this to it. Now you can put something else on, and now it sticks. Glue dots are really good for embellishments. I stuck a glue dot under the middle section. You can't see it now because I put a rhinestone over top of it, but the middle section when I went to glue this bow die cut down, there was just a little spot there, so I stuck a glue dot behind it. When you're sticking these pieces down, what I do is I lay them all down, and then I put a couple pieces of tear and tape over top, and then I just stuck the pine cone right to the tear and tape. So it was like one layer was holding them down and the other layer was holding on the pine cone. But you can put glue dots behind different things. You can put dimensionals behind different things. But if you put a bunch of stuff down, then just put something over top of it that hides the adhesive. And so all the adhesive's just kind of tucked underneath the edges. I threw in some bling. Now, because I threw in a bunch of different options for you, and my card, all it has is that one little rhinestone, the sample card that I made, but that doesn't mean you don't want to bling it up. There's also different things in there, so if you decide you could use this same layout, as it were. So you'll see in the cardstock section, but you got a bunch of different pieces, but you have lots of different styles of this, and I threw in some snowflakes and various things. But you could use the same thing. Make a card base, put down a layer, put a strip of the pattern paper, which you could also put going this way or whatever you want. I've given you a few different options for cutting out labels. You've got a whole bunch of different choices for stamping sentiments. You've got some little stamps so you can stamp on this instead of embossing it. You can cut out this foliage, and I think there's a few other options in there too. So if you decide you want to make something that looks totally different than this, but just kind of using the same elements, you can do that. And so I've given you some options. So there's, stars, and there's some snowflakes. These are just various things that are left over from before. some more snowflakes, some hearts. I love these little hearts, put them on anything. There's some pearls and some diamonds, which are so obviously not pearls and diamonds, but that's what I like to call them. So you just gotta have a bunch of different options for embellishing. So I'm just gonna pause the. Oh no, I got one more tool and then I'll pause. I'm trying to make this as unjerky and easy for you as possible. So this is the Stampin' Trimmer that's in there. This thing lifts up. You'll notice it doesn't right now because I got it locked, so it doesn't flop open. So right here at the top, there's a little thing that clicks. So if I click it open, this will come up, right? And then when I'm done with it, I'm just going to click that again. So there's 2 blades on it. You really want to try not to mix them up. Oh, believe me, I've done it many, many times, but you really want to try. So the lighter color one is the scoring blade. So when you go like this, and there's a little groove underneath, which is where these ride in, it scores a line. So I'm not going to be able to show you, but it basically creases it for you, right? So it gives it, so if you're making a nice fold. Now I've already scored all your card bases, so you don't really have to, but just in case you decide to do something else, you can. And then there's the cutting blade, which is the dark one, which cuts really well. So you're basically just, lining up at your measurement. There's measurements on the top and the bottom, and doing it. Now, if you're doing a whole bunch of stuff with the scoring blade, my 2-cent tip is you can go down to the end. My desk has got too much stuff on it to do. You can go down to the end, and when you get down here, and this would also be if you needed to replace the blade, when you get down here, there's a wide spot in this track right here. So when you get down to the end, you get your blade down to the end, the blade will just pop out where that wide spot is. Not if you're doing it one-handed, it won't, but normally, sure it will. Okay, so when you come down to the end, you can just pop your blade out. I'm going to do left-handed now. And then put a new one in. Or, like I said, if you were going to do a whole bunch of scoring stuff, just pop your cutting blade out temporarily, because then you don't have to worry about grabbing the wrong one. Ask me how I know. Okay, and then when you go to put it back in again, you just find the little hole there, slide it back in, and in we go. So, like I said, I'm going to lock it. It's not the end of the world if you don't lock it. If you don't lock it, the little strip that's in here will always fall out, because this thing will flap. But I know how to put it all back together, so you don't have to worry. I just wanted it all properly set up when you got it. Okay, so that's pretty much the main tools. I'm going to grab some stamps and some ink and some paper and show you the rest. Actually, you know what? I'm using a new program tonight, and I can't find the pause button. So I'm not going to pause because I don't know how. I'm going to try to put this on the floor without damaging anything. Here we go. We've got to put this over here. Okay. Such a professional job. Okay. We have... Try not to throw stuff on the floor. We have some stamps and ink for you. Now, for demo purposes, this stamp is not in your box. So don't worry about me forgetting it on my desk. That's why I used something totally different. I gave you 3 kinds of ink. Sorry, 3 colors of ink. I gave you red, green, and brown. Plus I gave you a black. You never know. I always put black in. So these are the colors that are in the main paper and the main cutouts and everything you have. So it will work to coordinate. Now, just going to quickly show you something. If you have a stamp pad, you actually have at least 2 colors. So in this case, this is Old Olive. It's nice green. So when you stamp up your image and you stamp straight onto the paper, you get like a solid green, right? Full strength. But you can also stamp again. It's called stamping off, and you'll get a lighter version of the same. Now in the case of here, I've used 2 different colors of green, and just by stamping one off, you're getting almost the same effect of those 2 different colors of green. But for less stamp pads in the box, because I only have limited supply, you can actually get a couple colors. And you could stamp one more time, too, if you want. But by the time you get to the 3rd one, sometimes you can't quite see what you're doing. But it does give you depth. So if you wanted to stamp a bunch of foliage on a card, it won't work with, in this particular example, because it won't make any sense. Unless you try to imagine a tree branch running, it won't make any sense. but you know how things fade as they go away to kind of show movement or depth? That's the same general idea. But if you wanted to do this, you could just do like this, stamp, and then you can stamp a little bit more. And so with one stamp set, you get a little more depth because you have a couple different tones of the same color. That's a pretty messy job, but you get the idea. So just letting you know, that's why you have 3 colors. but you could make them stretch out into a little bit more if you wanted to. And these are the ones that will match best with the paper that's in there. I gave you, just a minute. I gave you the stamp set that was in the sample. So in the sample, it said Merry Christmas. I'm pretty sure you used this stamp set last year. And so you may have already used this. I wasn't 100% sure. Doesn't mean you can't use it again. I just wasn't 100% sure. So I put it in again just in case you wanted that exact wording from there. But I also added, this is the one I used in the sample I made, just because I like it. So I gave you a bunch of these other ones. They are well-loved stamps. I love this stamp set. Don't worry, as gross as those stamps look, they work just perfectly fine. You'll also notice there's snowflakes, stars, light bulbs, so you could do a little background stamping. You've also got some branches here and that you can stamp on if you wanted to. A couple other sentiments. This one's beautiful. This is the main set that I gave you that makes the bows in the card. Okay, so this was the sample you gave me. They only used the middle size. Oops, I'm off screen. They only used the middle size one. I cut both of them, and just to see what I did with it. I cut, all three of them, and wanted just to see, oh, hey, maybe we'll use more than one. But look how big the biggest one is. Here, I'll flip this over so it's easier to see. It covers a good part of your card. So if you're going to use the biggest one, you might have to adjust where you put things. So yeah, to get the one that's on the card and the one that's in your sample, it's this one here, the middle size one. And then this one's just a smaller one. And there is no rule about how much foliage you can put on or what you can put on. There's two different sizes of cones. I used the smaller one. Doesn't really matter which one you use. And then, just because, there's also a couple labels in here if you want to use a couple different labels. I like a little variety, and I like to have kind of two colors in there, so of course like I said, I can't follow rules. So I added a couple of these little sprigs. So on my sample, I made the boughs the darker color, and these little, I don't even know what leaf this is supposed to be, eucalyptus or something, I think. I made that the lighter color, just because I like it. But you don't have to. This label was in there just because for the one set I gave you, some of the sentiments are a bit smaller, so they would fit pretty well on here. This is the label in the picture. It came from a different set, so I just pulled it out and put it in here. And then there's a couple different size bows. You can also, I only used one of them, depending how thick you want your card to be. You can also cut both bows out and layer them on top of each other. Just put a glue dot between them and you'll just get a deeper looking bow. So those are the dies in the stamp sets I gave you. I'm going to move some of these out of the way. And the other ones I'm going to keep because I'm going to show you one more thing on them. Because I don't know if we've used the die cut machine together. So I'm going to give you a quick how-to on that. I also put in 3 different embossing folders. This is the one that's in the sample you sent me. I could tell by looking that this is what it was. I love this one, and that's the one I made my sample with. But I was looking at some of the other stuff I threw in. I love wood grain. Honestly, and it's a cool effect. So I put that one in. And then I have this cool snowflake one. So I thought even if you just want to, and you don't necessarily have to put things in the middle. Like if you put the snowflake in the middle, most of it would be covered up. But if you wanted to do like a snowflake effect on a card, you'll see some of the paper has snowflakes on it. You could emboss off to the side and then move your stuff over here, and then the snowflake would be peeking out instead of foliage, or put foliage over top of it. There are no rules. So those are what? Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, that's all great. You gave me embossing folders and dies. Now what do I do with them? Well, here we have the die cut machine. And I think last year when you did this, yep, that's right, just knocked a whole bunch of stuff on the floor. You only used the punch. But the die cut machine is so much fun. And in this case, if I'd had more time, I might have been able to do some of the die cutting for you, but for 20 cards, it's a fair bit of die cutting. And I didn't have that this time. Plus, it gives you more options for what you want to put on them and a little more variety, so I thought you might appreciate that. So, this machine's a little big and it's not going to fit necessarily in. So these things just fold up, right, for transport. So there's a little notch here and they're going to pop back down. I moved my camera down so you can see. So this is the machine. and I'm not going to have the whole thing in screen the whole time, but it's super easy to use and it's very durable, so not to worry. When you're using this machine, you're basically doing the same thing. You're making a sandwich to put your stuff through. So these are plates, and yes, they are well used and well loved, and as you can see. So these 4 plates together are what you need for die cutting, right? And it's a fairly easy sandwich. They're also labeled on here, and they're labeled on the main plate. That's upside down. They're labeled on the main plate what you need to do. So, but at any point, if you're not sure, you can always just call me as well. So what you want to do is you want to put 3 plates down. We're going to do some die cutting, right? So we're going to take these 3 plates, the thickest one, the little shim, and either one of the 2 clear ones, doesn't even matter which one. And you're going to put them down. And then you're going to pick a piece of cardstock, and I just keep using scraps. Actually, I'm not going to use scraps. I'm going to use a piece that knocked onto the floor. Okay, I'm back. So this was when I was making my sample. I had cut a couple strips, so I'll just use those ones. And what did I do with the dies? There we go. So I'm just going to cut you a pine cone. How about that? Okay, so when you're using the dies, and I say this not to be insulting, just because there's no way of knowing this unless somebody tells you, but the part that sticks up with the little ridge on it is the cutting edge. They're so thin, it's not even super distinctive, but there's one side that is perfectly smooth, and there's one side that has like little ridges on it. So the ridges are what actually cuts, and small as it is, it will cut through paper, it will cut through a couple layers of paper. They're amazing. So in the case of this, I made the pine cone, I made it 2-part because I like the 2 tones. So I'm putting, this die is there's just different kinds. Some of them are open like the labels, some of them are more detailed. But either way, we're just putting the cutting side down. And you don't want to put it too close to the edge of your paper, because if it shifts a little bit, then you have to recut it. And it's just annoying. It's better just to put it kind of in the middle. You don't want to like stick it right in the middle of a huge piece of paper, because you'll never get enough done. You'll go through too much paper. And you can put more than one thing on here. When I cut with the die cut, I usually have the entire thing covered in cardstock. But so I just put 2 different ones down. So then we're going to put the clear plate over top, and we're just going to hold it all together. If you find they move a lot, you can put a little sticky note to hold them down. But I find if you put the lid on and then you can't actually see what I'm doing on screen. If you put the top plate on and then just kind of hold it like this, like just put your fingers on it, when you go through, they don't really move that much. So when you push this in, you'll notice over here, the handle's moving. That's the direction the handle turns, because this machine will work either way, left-handed, right-handed. So when you push the plates just even a little bit into the machine, this handle will move, and that will tell you what direction to turn. So basically, you're just going to crank it through. Now, because I have a whole bunch of stuff on my desk, I'm going to actually just crank it backwards and pull it back out, because otherwise it's just going to hit the stand, the camera button. Oops, I keep letting go. If you're doing something, if you have a lot of stuff on, or you're doing like really detailed dies and you find they're a little bit hard to pop out of the paper, you can go back and forth a couple times, and that just makes sure it cuts all the way through. You can also go, like, put it through once, and I can see that it cut through here just fine, but if it didn't, it's not really easy to see on camera, but it'll pop out, right? That's the easiest way. If you're finding they're not popping out really easily, then just leave it the way it is, because it will kind of stay in its own track. You can also put them back in and put them upside down on the plate, and then the rollers are closer, and it'll just kind of, but for most of the dies, and all of the ones I used today to make the card, you don't need to roll through twice. But like I said, it doesn't do any harm if you do. Sometimes you just have too much stuff on your desk, and that's the only way to do it. Okay, so those 2 dies, and they all work the same. It doesn't matter which die it is. You put the paper down, you put the die over top, they work. So you can see where the 2 holes are. They cut out beautifully. Back to the pokey tool again. So this one, okay, I have a garbage bin. I'm reluctant to put my garbage bin. You can see all my lozenges because I've been sick. So in this case, there's lots of little holes that are going to poke out, and just going to do it over top of the garbage bin just to get them all out. So that's what I did. I'm not going to do it all right now to show you, but if there's little things, you can just poke them out with the little pokey tool. If they're big enough, or if you have sharp enough nails, you can just pop them right out. So this is what I did for this card. You can see that the lighter color's underneath, and then I put this darker color over top. So what I did, and you'll find when we get to the cardstock part, when you have a sheet of the dark brown, let's move that out of the way, it's distracting me. You have a sheet of the dark brown, which is called early espresso, in case you're wondering, for this. And on the back it's white, because I put a sheet of adhesive on the back. So I basically made it so that when you cut it into a sticker. And you'll notice that when you pull away the sticker backing, a lot of the little holes come out. So if there's no sticker backing, obviously you just poke them out, that's fine. But because the sticker backing kind of holds everything together, they don't all pop out as easily. But so what you can do though is when you pull this out, it's kind of a neat effect. Oops, it'd be neater if it was on camera. So when you pull this out, you'll notice though all the little bits and pieces, like most of them that were in here stuck to this piece of the backing. So, and there's lots of adhesive on here, it doesn't matter if your finger touches it. So I only had to take these extra 2 little bits out. So I'm just going to pop those in the garbage because they're sticky. So what you have now basically, that's a good thing that happened. You want to kind of turn it over and check, because sometimes when you pop little pieces out, they'll stick to the adhesive on the back. Then you get little lumps, which you don't want. So in this case, I don't think you can totally see it, but it's kind of shiny because there's adhesive. This one is not, right? This is just a piece of cardstock. But I made it so that this one is like a sticker. So what you do is orient them the same way, and then if you kind of use your finger as the guide and put them together like this, and just sort of line up the edges, and once you get the edges where it feels like they're lined up, then just squish them. Well, now I've just put that sticker on the top. So now, instead of trying to glue all these tiny little bits and try to get enough, we've just used it like a sticker. So what I'm going to show you, I know, I wish I had like you live, because then you could go, ooh, because adhesive sheet is awesome. And because I haven't figured out how to pause, I didn't have all my stuff ready, so pardon the noise while I shift everything over. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is how your brown paper was made, so that if you want to, you can make any of them into a sticker. I added the adhesive sheets into the bag, or into the box for you, just in case you want. If you want to put adhesive behind the foliage and stick it straight down, you can. I don't know, it's just personal taste. I like mine to be a little looser, so they're taped on the end, they're not going anywhere. I just like them to be a little, flappier. But if you're finding that they're moving too much, or if it's just your personal taste and you want to glue them straight down, you can put sticker on the behind. You can put stickers behind the bow. You can put stickers behind this if you want to stick it straight down. Whatever. Any one of them will work. The stickers are great. I mean, there are certain things that they are, like the cat's meow. Just a second there, I got stuff stuck everywhere. Okay, so these sheets are in here. Some of them are cut a little bit, and some of them are full sheets. Use whatever you want. Okay, I think I got 2 pieces there. So this is basically what I did to get the brown one for you. So like I said, you can put it on any one you want. So this is, you're basically just covering the back of the sheet. So you want it to be just a little smaller. So all I'm doing is taking my piece of paper, and I'm shifting the paper over so that it's a little bit off. Because then when I cut along the edge, it's going to be just inside because I've shifted it a little bit. So you want it to be just a bit smaller than your paper. And that's really, it's just so that the edges don't stick over, because then everything will stick to the edges. And you don't really want to, if you can help it, you don't really want to get any of the sticky stuff on your plates and on your dies, because then, yeah, they'll start to stick to stuff, and the paper will stick to them, and you don't really want that. So like I said, there's a whole bunch of extra stuff in there if you want to put it on. But I turned this piece of cardstock over, which is really funny because the cardstock is exactly the same on both sides. Once you put the sticky on, it makes a difference which way you do it. But at this point, it was just because they were together, and I'm like, put it on the back. You can put this adhesive sheet on the patterned paper. Here, let me just grab this little piece here. So, patterned paper, with the exception of a few specialty ones, patterned paper is double-sided. So you definitely want to make sure that you're putting the sticky on the side you don't want to use, because you'll never get it off. So this is the pack of paper that you asked for or or not that you asked for, but that the sample was in. So I've got a whole bunch of other ones in there. I threw in this really cool red Christmas one because it went with the other snowflakes. But there's a whole bunch of different ones in here. And then I also had a small pack of just sort of patterned paper on there. So you have lots of paper to choose from. And if you wanted to make any of these into stickers, you could. I'm trying to get a small piece. Okay, so this one. So you'll notice on this side is diamonds, and this side is gingham. So if it's the gingham side you want to cut, make sure that you pick the right side for putting the adhesive. It does not matter, like I said on the cardstock, it's the same. Once you put the adhesive on, it does matter which way you cut it. Okay, so all you're going to do, and all I do is fold over the corner like a little bit, right, and just kind of roll it back. The same trick works on basically any kind of sticker, so that you get just a bit of a separation, and then you're going to pull them apart. Now the part with the writing does not have any sticky on it, right? So that's the part that's going to come off and go in the recycle bin. And then now this part that's left is very sticky. So you're just going to, and it doesn't matter if it goes on straight or crooked. I just tried to do it straight, but so because I left a little bit of an edge, I'm just going to lay it down, and I'm going to be crooked because I always am. And you're just going to lay it flat onto the paper, right? So put it down, and now you've got this full-size sticker. Now I actually did pretty good. Usually I'm like way off the side, but I'm just going to trim this because I can. There we go. So now we have a sticker on the back. So this, for the most part, unless you're cutting a really intricate die, is going to cut just the same as any other one. You don't have to run it through a whole bunch of times or anything like that. Excuse me while I stop an avalanche on my desk again. There we go. But you do want to make sure, so if you're going to use this, and whether you're using the big one or the small one, doesn't matter. So if you're going to use this to cut, you want to make sure that the adhesive side is down, cut like this, and that your die goes on top of it when you put it on the plates to go through the machine. Because when the die's cut, they push down, so you get like this nice rounded edge to it, and so it looks nicer. If you were to cut it this way, it doesn't really matter. Your die might get a little sticky, but you could just wipe that off. But mostly what happens is your die then has like an upper edge to it,